Hi folks, this is Jay. Hope you're okay today. It's good to be with you, and love to everybody out there. We're doing a Google Hangout on Kant's Critique of Pure Reason, and so we're just gonna look at it for an hour, and then Mark's going to do a Bible study later on. So we'll see how it goes. I've only just stopped studying. I've been studying the whole day, so my head's just full of various things. So I don't know if I could straighten my thoughts out, but I'll try my best. So I'll see if anyone comes and hears what it's all about. So if you want to come on, you need to message me privately. Send me a message on the Google Hangout. Just send me a message. Don't write underneath the video. I've not, even though you might be in my circle, I've not sent it to anybody. So you need to, if you'd like to come on, you need to say, Jay, I'd like to come on, and then I'll link you in. Hi, Mark. You okay, bro?
Right, brother.
All right. So Mark's just coming in here. So if anybody else wants to join us, feel free to come and join us. Did you do any reading of Kant today, Mark, or anything, or read anything else?
I haven't, Jason, no.
All right.
I'm just interested. I thought it'd have been on YouTube. I was just going to watch it on YouTube. I didn't know you needed a plug-in, so...
It's all right, mate. You could just sit in and listen if you want.
Yeah, I'll sit and listen. It's alright.
So yeah, if anyone wants to come in, you need to message me, and then I'll bring you in. I'm not just gonna send invitations out to everybody and anyone. You can only come in if you send me a message. Okay. Sorry about this, Mark.
Right, mate.
Just trying to. So I've looked at the inbox. Nobody sent a desire to come on yet. And I'm looking at messages. So John Dropout, if you want to come on, you need to send me a message on YouTube, on Lollard Preachers. Send me a message privately, and then I'll send you the link. Okay. How you doing, Mark? You had a good day, mate?
I'm alright, Jay, yeah? How come you didn't do it as like a live thing on the YouTube, Jay?
Yeah, we are.
Like,
We're on
like,
YouTube. We're on YouTube now.
alright.
We're on. I thought when you said you were looking at it, I
Oh,
thought
yeah.
I thought you wanted to come on, so I just sent you the link. But if you want to,
Alright.
you don't want to come on and you just want to go off and listen, go. It's okay. It's okay. Don't worry. Don't worry. But it's nice to have you, bro.
Alright. I'll stay now, mate.
Um. Yeah. So I've been studying all day, me, on this topic. Listen to Matt Chandler. Have you heard of Matt Chandler?
Yeah, he's good, yeah.
Oh, he was good today. He's really, really good. Um. Yeah. So anyway, I'm going to start anyway about Kant. And we've got an hour, so if anyone wants to come on, you need to send me a message. I'll repeat, last time, you want to come on, you need to send me a message on Lollard Preachers, a private message, and I'll send you the link. I am not going to post it under the video. I'm not going to invite people willy-nilly. It's special invitation only. So you need to send me a private message, then I'll send you the link. So I'm going to start now about Kant. Okay. Well, from what I understand, I'll just say a few things about Kant and the context of Kant's critique of pure reason from the way I understand it, the historical context. There's three streams that I think come through what Kant's trying to do. You have the stream he mentioned in the critique of pure reason, the schoolman, and I think this is a reference to the scholastics of the Middle Ages. So he's a bit fed up with them, and he wants to put their kind of arguments about metaphysics. Metaphysics is the study of beliefs that are beyond this natural realm. So the idea of soul, the idea of God, and things like that. And he wants to put metaphysics on one side and put these schoolmen to the side, type of thing. The other thing is there was some rational philosophers, like I can't pronounce it. We said it today, Mark. Leipzig or Lisbon,
Yeah.
and there were these kind of rationalists who were saying that there is intuitive knowledge about God, and he wanted to deal with them. But also, in his second book, his book that expounds the Critique of Pure Reason, a little book, he said, I read Hume, and this is one of the main reasons why he wrote the Critique of Pure Reason. He said, I read Hume, and he awakened me out of my dogmatic slumbers. So David Hume was key to awakening Kant to write this book. And the reason why it was key is the Enlightenment, a lot of it was on about rationalism and reason. But Hume took it to its full conclusion. And what he noticed that if you follow reason to its logical conclusion, skepticism defeats itself and becomes you don't know anything. So like Hume talked about causality, and he talked about that within the structures of nature, whenever there's a cause and effect, if we start to study it deeper and deeper, we don't really know what's going on. And so he realized that skepticism in the end defeats itself. You don't end up knowing anything. So Kant wanted to save the day, save science from this humongous problem. And so what he does, he's got the schoolmen, the scholastics in his mind, he's got the rationalists in his mind, and he's got Hume in his mind. So the Critique of Pure Reason is kind of like he kind of does. His method of thinking is rhetoric, is to use two methods of analysis, and I can't remember the names. There's something like synthetic analysis and something else. But there's two ways of analysis. One is knowledge that can be gained through experience. So any language that has knowledge which is based on experience is real knowledge, is scientific knowledge. Then secondly, any language that is a universal principle but we can't experience, like space or time, we can't experience the full orb of space or the full orb of time, he would cut off and say it's not real scientific knowledge, it's intuitive knowledge. And I think why he did that is he was trying to say that there can be some grounding in science. There's this intuitive stuff, but we can't prove it, but it's there, like space and time. And then there is the science of experience and analysis of experience. And I think that if you understand that, that's the heart of the book, because it begins with these two types of analysis of language. And then what he does from that two method of analysis, what he does then through the book, what he does is he's just trying to analyze basically which categories goes in which. Metaphysics, anything about the natural, the supernatural goes in this camp, we can't prove it. Anything natural and by experience, we can say that's science and it's here, and he's just trying to do that all through the book. And the first 100 pages he's trying to do that. And so that's basically Kant. The other thing about Kant is he didn't believe there was a... this is what I think, I might be wrong, but he seemed to think that, well, I know that he didn't feel we could have direct access to reality. He believed reality was there, but it was coloured. The key for Kant is is coloured by us, by how we interpret that experience. And it's how we interpret things and our experience that is really the basis of our knowledge. And so that is a moving away from realism, the idea that reality is there and that language corresponds to reality, and we can have real, true knowledge of reality. Kant would say, no, we don't. We can't get close to reality. We experience is coloring our understanding of reality. And so, to sum up, for me, if you had Kant here now, and basically his baby is science, and basically if you had to sum him up, it would be the Kant's critique of pure reason. From what I'm getting, is basically don't touch my anointed. Don't touch my anointed. My anointed is science. It's my little baby. You metaphysicians, stay away. You skepticism, stay away. Don't touch my anointed. I can give a rational basis for it, and here's my rational basis. If the Apostle Paul was here, he'd say, on your bike, I don't care what you're saying about your anointed. For me to live is Christ and to die is gain. That's what Paul would say to Kant. So that's a rough background, but you have to understand, in order to understand Kant, you also have to realize that his critique of pure reason was only part of his project, and that any discussion on Kant, if it was for an hour or 10 hours, there's so much Kant wrote and so much Kant did in philosophical thinking that it would be arrogant to say that you understand Kant's full project. It would be arrogant to say that you fully understand Kant, because he wrote so much. And there are, even today, different schools of interpretation about Kant. Different scholars. I have one here that I've not read yet. A lady, it's a 200-page book on Kant. So there are different scholars and different interpretations of Kant. So that's basically. Oh, and you got to get Kant's other books alongside the other main books, like not only Critique of Pure Reason, but Critique of Practical Reason, and there's another book as well which deals with ethics and freedom of the will, and that's part of his philosophical project. So I think that's basically it, really. So that's generally a summing up of Kant, really. I think I don't know what you think, Mark, if that makes sense to you, or.
I'm just thinking, what is how does Kant fit in with the idea of postmodernity? Is the heart of postmodernity being, truth is not objective, it's just subjective? Does his system move towards supporting postmodernism or away?
I think his system. John Dropout. I'm gonna put the link, mate, under the video, so you can press the link there. Yeah. So I'll do that in a second. All right. So I'll just put it under the video, but I only want John Dropout to come on. Nobody else come on. All right. John Dropout. All right. Nobody else come on. If anybody else comes on, I'll just take you off. I'll put a link under the video.
Who's John J?
He's an atheist guy, and he just wanted to come on and talk about it.
All right. Is that the one you were waiting for? Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll put a link on for you in a second, John. I think basically what happened. The thing is, in the schoolmen, the back in the time of Sir Thomas Aquinas, they were realist. A lot of them, not all of them, but they were realist, and what they believed is reality was objective. With Kant, reality is not objective. It is not objectively real, and it's not objectively real because we can't have access to reality in its fullness. It's mediated by our experience. What that means is knowledge is subjective. So what happened was Kant's project, does move into postmodernity, because in a way he was defending, he was agreeing, in a way he was critiquing Hume, but in a way he was agreeing with Hume. He was saying that knowledge is sense experience. But he was disagreeing with you, saying that not only is knowledge sense experience, but it's mediated by us as individuals. It's subjective.
Mm.
So he went a step further than Hume there, and this subjectivism does play into the against modernity, and does come to fore, especially in postmodernity, where they actually, I think, recognize more than modernists that there is prejudice and subjective experience to play in our scientific knowledge,
Mm.
and led to relativism. So Kant's philosophy did lead to relativism in the end, even though,
That's what I was thinking as well, Jay.
yeah, yeah.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Yeah, that's
So,
what I picked up.
so John, I'm going to post to you the link, but when I post the link, um, let John come on. John, I've sent you a link, mate. I hope you've got it. Let me know if you've got it. You sent me a message, and I've just posted you. Sorry about this. I've gone to your channel, John, and under your last video, I'm going to post a link. Sorry about this. Okay, I posted you a link, John, on your channel under your last video that you've made. Sorry, it's under Sophio Ex Nihilo dialogues concerning natural religion. You've got 111 views. I've sent you a link under that video, mate. So no one else be coming on, just John for the moment, okay? So I've sent you 2 links, John. So it's up to you now, bro. Sorry about that, Mark. Sorry, mate.
No, you're alright. You're alright, Jay. You're alright.
He's been waiting 10-15 minutes, so I thought I'd just send it.
No,
Sorry,
that's fine, mate. It's fine.
you said that again, mate.
I said that's fine, that Jay. That's fine.
So
I mean, this is sorry.
what we
I was
said?
just thinking. Yeah, anything that's a rejection of reason
Yeah,
and empiricalism is postmodernity, isn't it?
yeah, yeah,
That's been defined as postmodernism. So it doesn't surprise me that a lot of postmodern philosophers probably look at him because of that system.
yeah. Well, I think he Kant's book Critique of Pure Reason. It was like a bombshell. It is probably one of the most key philosophical texts in modern philosophy, because it was like a bombshell in philosophy, and like in theology, it had a massive impact, because what happened was, I think it's the Noumenon. He split theology and science. He split the two and was saying that that the category of science is not rooted to the physical. Sorry, the category of theology is not rooted to the physical. So natural theology is not something that we can know, or theology from nature or anything like that. So we can't know that. So that's just not. It wasn't. He didn't say it didn't exist, but he was just saying you can't give it a rational basis like you can science.
Yeah.
And then so the two, for him, the two split. I think it was called the Noumenon, with the split.
Yeah.
And here you have the knowledge about science, and we can know something here, but theology and even sort of philosophical questions that can't be experienced is not real, like, kind of scientific knowledge. So there was a split, and that affected theology in a massive way, because a lot of theologians stopped using arguments for the proofs of existence of God and things like that.
Mm.
What is interesting is you get a lot of, in the 17th century, you get a lot of, because of this emphasis on rationalism and science, or 1700s, you get a lot of thinkers writing books and defending the Christian faith as scientific and as rational, and they use these proofs quite a lot. These proofs of St. Thomas Aquinas, the cosmological argument, the teleological argument, and all the rest. So they were using these arguments, but when Kant wrote his book, it kind of like, people thought, well, Kant's defeated these people who use these arguments.
Mm.
And the thing is, though, what's interesting is, if you look at the history of theology, if you look at Sir Thomas. Hello?
I'm listening, Jason. Please continue.
Who are you, sir?
My name is Blue as Blue is.
Yeah, no, I want you to leave, sir. Okay, I'm just having John on, if you don't mind.
You know, I want you to tell the truth too. You know, but we always don't get what we want, Jason. Please continue. I'm not bothering you.
Are you angry, mate, there? Hey, Jay?
Yeah, it's alright, I'm just getting...
That guy, is he a bit angry, Jay? He sounds a bit angry. Is he okay? Are you alright, mate?
Oh, I'm fine. Thank you so much for asking, Mark. I'm trying to learn a little here from J-Dog.
Right. You right, Jay?
Yeah, I'm just looking at... I kick him off, basically.
Have you seen him? Do you know? Have you seen him before, Jay?
Yeah. You need to leave, mate. You're not coming on the show. It's as simple as that. You need to leave, mate. Okay.
He looks scary, him, Jay. He looks like one of those American serial killers. Yeah.
Is that John?
Yeah, finally.
Hey, John.
Oh, I know. Believe me, I'm more excited than anybody.
Hallelujah. How you doing, bro?
I'm doing great, man. Doing great. Just got off work. I'm really excited to be here.
Good to see you. This is Mark.
Awesome.
Mark, John.
Hi, Mark. It's a pleasure, man.
Hiya, Johnny. Right, mate?
I'm all right, man. I'm all right. Couldn't ask for a better day.
Whereabouts do you live, John?
I'm in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada.
Oh, right. I've got a friend from Edmonton.
Oh, really?
Oh,
Yeah, it's a big town.
Craig and Sarah Hendrickson.
Oh, well, it's a larger town, so I probably don't know him.
Yeah. Where do you work, John?
I'm a refrigeration mechanic. I work all over the place, so.
Oh, yeah. Do you enjoy it?
Oh, it's great work, man. Good, honest work.
Yeah. Great stuff.
Cool. So I've been hearing a little bit of your summation of Kant there. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in some ways, I think I do agree with you. He was trying to make a distinction between scientific and what we might call, like, I think he referred to it as sort of the transcendental. What we were referring to as what we kind of assume before we can even make sense of our knowledge, right?
Yeah.
And I think Kant was working very hard to create this very hard distinction between those two things, right? He uses the word pure to mean without any empirical or without any sensical data, right? He wants to eliminate what he considers our subjective point of view whenever he refers to something as pure. And I think that's a really great idea. I don't know if it works all the time in practice when we're discussing things, right? And I think he even admits it. That it's very hard to get to that pure state without experience. There seems to be a necessity for experience for us to really put our intuitions into play.
Yeah, yeah. Did you get to that bit where he talked about time and logic and space? And
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, his discussion on space and time, especially, are very interesting. Especially at them as an intuition that's separate from that we can't separate from our subjective point of view. I think when he's referring to space, I mean, he's calling it an intuition, and it's very hard to disagree with him in that case. I mean, we don't really, when we're talking about space, we're not talking about an object or a property of things. We're talking about, I think he calls it the universality of the possibility of things. I mean, we're talking about the place where things are, the place where things can be, and we're talking about a concept in that case. And I think that's why he says it's an intuition that we can't separate from ourselves. And I think he almost refers to himself as, I remember he compares himself to Galileo, right? Where instead of the world being Earth, or we thought the Earth was geocentric and that the stars went around, but as we came up to, our math kept hitting these walls, and so he was the first one to see that perhaps it was the spectator that was moving and not the object that's moving. And he sees himself in that light, that he's shifting the perspective of our perspective of space and time from the spectator being the one moving to the objects being moving to the spectator being the one being moved.
yeah, I wasn't fully convinced about it, really. I know what he's saying, because he was saying that that basically our knowledge, like you can't quantify space fully because you can't experience all of space. So to a point, it goes outside our experience.
Yeah, exactly. There's almost an impossibility of an objective view of it because we can't see the universal size of space or time. When we view it, he says that when we view it, we only view a part of it, right? I mean, anytime we make a conception, we only make a conception of a part of space or a part of time, and not the theoretical infinity or infinite space that we kind of put possibility into.
Yeah, I mean, it would suit me to agree with him, but I'm not too fully sure if I'll fully agree with the bit about space and time, because what we've learned about time and what we're learning about space is we are engaged in our experience of that as well. So
right,
even though there's a sense, because he's saying what he's trying to do is he's trying to make a category of, you can put stuff in this bag that we can't analyze empirically, and stuff in this bag that we can analyze empirically. But I would say this issue about time and about space that he chose is kind of in the middle. There is empirical as well as stuff that we can't understand empirically. So I don't think it falls into a dichotomy. I think they're entwined together.
I think I understand what you're saying. It's possible that when he's referring to the empiricalness of time, I mean, it's that he's more talking about how it's almost impossible to disconnect it from our observance of it, right? And I think that's where most people get hung up, right? They kind of feel like when we talk about space and time being contingent on the observer, that we're saying that space and time don't exist, right? But I think he's very careful to say that, he's not saying that space and time aren't real. He's saying that where they're actually real is when we order what we observe, right? That the mind needs to order the reality it's observing in order for that to be us to make sense of it. And in that case, we are really responsible for the construction of space and time as a concept, and we don't really experience it. We intuit the existence of it.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. So what do you think about that then?
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a part of me that does feel kind of strange about that, right? I mean, especially with time, I feel like just the idea of atoms that give off radiation at a very specific rate or vibrate at a very specific rate kind of lends credence to the idea that time might exist outside of ourselves, that we're observing something that's there. But I think Kant is very he's almost so careful in his stating of it, so that he doesn't state that we aren't observing something real, but that when we observe it, that very action of it, we don't even get to the point of ordering it without the inference already of time and space. That without that assumption, even we can't really even come to the conclusion of the reality or the unreality of it.
Right. So, do you think that he solved Hume's skepticism with that? Do you think that what he's saying saves the day? Because from what I understand, from what I've been learning, that he talks about he was awakened by Hume's out of his dogmatic slumbers, and to me, it seems as if Kant's trying to have his cake and eat it. He's trying to save himself from the logic of skepticism, and I'm not so sure that he saves the day, because in the end it seems to be a kind of subjectivism in a way. I don't know what you think.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely advocating a very strict limitation on what we can actually say. I mean, he's talking about, he's very specifically addressing what he believes our subjective limitations are and what we can observe and what we can see versus what we have to intuit before we can observe. So I think he's attempting to. I mean, he kind of states at the beginning that he's attempting to engage in something like an honest representation of himself. He's looking for he's looking to delve deeply into how he knows what he knows. And I think when you want to do that, you sort of have to take in your presuppositions. You have to admit what you couldn't do without, right? And I think that's what is his real test of space and time is, right? That it must be an intuition, because in order for us to understand anything, we couldn't do without those two assumptions. I think his biggest example was where he says, imagine two straight lines running parallel to each other, and then imagine the statement, how could you prove the statement that two straight lines running parallel to each other contain no area and will form no figure? Or how could you say that three straight lines can form a figure that contains area, right? Without the conception of space and time, you'd have to even all the things in the statement don't suggest the formation of a triangle, even though we intuit a triangle when we think three sides make a figure. Because three lines and the concept of lines and the concept of three don't create a triangle without our intuition of a figure, right, in space.
Well,
so there's.
But if reality is if we can't access objectively reality, then even the concepts of intuition, we are still using our senses to reflect upon that intuition. So how can we be in contact with the intuition if we can't be in contact with reality fully?
Yeah, I mean, I think how he solves that is he states that sensuous intuition isn't subjected to judgment before it arrives at our cognition. So how he states is that what's coming in through our senses is he states it as phenomena, and he can state completely objectively that when the senses are stimulated, there is a phenomena that is taking place, right? That is the experience of a phenomena, and whether or not that has an object that's in reference to, and whether or not that reference is in accordance with the actual reality, he can't state. But he can state that once it is coming into his cognition, then he can make a judgment on it. And he states that it's sort of sensuous intuition. You can't really filter what your senses bring in. You can only analyze the result after your intuitions have created the model for you.
Yeah. Sorry, go on, mate.
No, definitely, and to sort of cover his ass on that, he actually states that intuition and conception can't exist without each other, right? That there has to be an object through which the intuition applies to, and there has to be an application to which the intuition must work itself into, or must be added to, in order to create the conception, right? So in that way he states that they almost don't exist on their own before they become cognition. We need conception and intuition itself to create cognition.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. The thing is, there's two things there. I think number one, I think that he doesn't bother asking the question about why is there intuition? Where, in the sense of why does the mind work in spatial conception and in time? In the sense that it's like a car, you've got a car there and it just is there, you get in and you use it. So he's saying it's there and I'm using it.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely...
He doesn't, so he's trying to put metaphysical questions on one side.
Definitely, and I think that's, I mean, that might even be the genius of it, right?
Let me finish, John.
Yeah, sure.
So he's trying to on one side put metaphysical questions on one side and say it's not part of science, and yet his intuition, this idea about how intuition works with space and time, he doesn't bother to realize that is it's a presupposition that he can't prove, and that is there, and that too needs like metaphysical thinking about. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he's definitely sort of putting to one side the things that he finds harder to justify, or at least almost impossible to justify externally, right? But I think
so what I'm saying is, John. So what I'm saying is, he's being a bit hypocritical. When it suits him, he puts stuff on one side, but when he's doing it, he doesn't.
Well, I think there is a moment sort of.
No one, Jason.
But I mean, I think there is a moment of sort of hypocrisy there. But I think he comes back to state it in his chapter on transcendental logic, where he states that we can't really use the logic. Like, I mean, it's nearly impossible to turn reason in on itself when it requires a sensuous intuition to begin with, right? When it requires an unanalyzed portion, we can't say what is it will never be able to tell us through the use of reason the origin of that reason. It's like trying to build. It's almost like it's asked its own question, right? You can't necessarily use it as a reasoning against it, but it's definitely, it sort of puts it out of the possibility. The logic itself can't be analyzed before it becomes logic in your brain, and so even the statements that you would make, or the statements about logic, might make it harder to. What am I trying to say here? It might make it impossible to actually get to the root of where that logic comes from.
Okay, I'll give you an example. Take Karl Marx, yeah? He said religion is the opium of the people, yeah? And it controls the masses. And yet Marxism went on to be controlling the masses. Yeah, we had Sherman Mao.
You're taking that highly out of context, Jason.
Well, let me just finish. And then, secondly, Freud said, religion is a myth. And he ended up creating a myth. In other words, whenever you there's a danger that...
What myth did Freud create?
Is it? Yeah.
What I'm saying is, if you take Kant's tools and you critique them and use them and bring it back to him, it's self-defeating. That's all I'm saying. If you take the way he's arguing, the way he's dealing with things, if you bring it back on him, then it's almost like self-defeating. That's what I think. That's what I'm trying to say.
Did Freud create, please?
Just I kick you off, mate. So could you just go?
No, I want to hear what the fuck you say, man. You say Freud created a myth. Why don't you fucking tell me what it is? I asked you a simple question, baby. What myth did Freud create?
Just
come on.
Well, I mean, I think there's a little bit of a. I think he's very good at creating the distinction between between what he calls the transcendental and his empirical knowledge, right? He understands that, you know, when we're talking about the idea of, what am I looking for here? We're talking about like the idea of pure versus like applied things. I mean, we're talking about the idea of removing any sort of empirical knowledge from the concept itself, right? And I think that's what he's talking about when he's talking about pure reason. Is he wants to delineate the things that are being affected by our subjective viewpoints. He figures that all the mistakes that have been made by Hume and all the radical skepticism is only because they haven't understood where the observer is actually affecting the outcome of the observation.
Yeah. I don't disagree with that, but I think if you look at the questions is, you know, what's the cash value? How does this fit into the context of philosophy? How does it fit into the context of the historical context of where Kant was? And how does it fit in today? Those are the cash value questions. I really appreciate you've done your homework about what Kant actually says. That's brilliant, John. So the questions that I'd like to put to you is, for you in your reading of Kant, and as an atheist, what's your position as an atheist about knowledge and how that relates to Kant? Your specific understanding of atheism, how does that relate to how you understand Kant at the moment, and how it affects your epistemology, and how you think maybe how that relates to Christianity? Because I think a lot of what Kant's doing is he's trying to deal with Hume, but he's also, if you read the preface set to the second edition, he can kind of, and also in the critique of the pure reason, he brings up quite often in the first 100 pages. That's all I've read at the moment, John, so you're ahead of me if you've read all of it. He mentions the schoolman, and I just wonder what your thoughts about all that is.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure if it was a difference in translation, but there was some parts there where I felt like he was kind of referring maybe to a more theological basis, but I think for the most part he was definitely trying to answer Hume, and at least kind of give a refutation of what he thought maybe was a little bit of an idealistic philosophy that was coming out of rationalism. And
Yeah.
I wonder.
I think that this is my interpretation. I definitely think there was an agenda there. I mean, if you go in the second volume of the preface, I don't know if I've got it here, but he definitely goes on about the state siding with the church, the metaphysicians, like the dogmatic fathers type people, and he's on about the church, the state siding with these people and stuff like that. So he's definitely got an issue with. He thinks what my impression is. He thinks that he's definitely dealing with the rationalists, because he studied Wolff and the rationalists when he was at university. So he was definitely dealing with them, and he was definitely dealing with Hume, because he says he woke him from a dogmatic slumber. But he also definitely dealing with the metaphysics of the Middle Ages and all that stuff. He's definitely dealing with that, and he feels that this is a hindrance to science. His baby is science. At the end of the day, he was a great scientist. He did a lot of he did some great things in science, and stuff like that. He came up with the nebula hypothesis and all the rest of it, and he just loved trying to do science. And so his baby's there, and he definitely has an agenda against a certain type of Christianity that he thinks is holding back science. That's what I think. If you read the second preface, it comes out strongly, and then the first 100 pages, it comes out strongly. I've got my notes here, but if I start reading quotes, it'll take ages. Anyway, sorry, John. Are you there, John?
Yeah, I'm still here, bud. I'm still here. Just enjoying hearing your thoughts on it.
I think there's three strings going on. There's you got to realize that he lectured on. He was a professor of metaphysics, and he lectured on metaphysics. So he not only was at uni and he studied Wolf and I can't pronounce his name, John. Is it Lipson?
Yeah, I think so.
Lipson,
Lipson.
yeah. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, tongue twisted. Lipson. He studied them, so he's definitely dealing with them, definitely dealing with Hume. But also, the whole history of Western philosophy was influenced by Occam and Abelard and all these people, and he's definitely dealing with them, and he thinks that's holding back science. Because a lot of that was not all of it, but a lot of it was about realism, the idea that reality does exist and we can have direct access reality, and language corresponds to reality. And so and that whole program led to Sir Thomas Aquinas building a theology of natural theology, where he was defending Christianity also from nature and saying we can know about God from nature. So he's kind of making a massive attack on that. And I haven't read I think you've read the whole book, but I haven't read the last part of it. But I know that he gets into a critique of the various arguments of the existence of God, and when you read the first part, that two analysis of language, where he talks about two types of language, the empiricist type and the transcendental type. Once you understand that, you've got the whole book, because basically it's those two principles he's going to take, and he's going to analyze and level everything under those two constructs. And so through the book, he's going to bring under these various arguments of Sir Thomas Aquinas and all the rest of it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's definitely the kind of the feel of the book. Is he spends his time very carefully separating all these forms of knowledge from their assumptions that they require to get to the knowledge. And I think that's a very astute point. That, I mean, that's once you kind of get those concepts underway, the book does tend to fall together. You start to see he's got some very long analogies, and so you start to see them coming up a little further, and it makes it a little easier to read for sure.
So, John, I hope you don't mind though. Is it okay if we just do an hour? Because I said to Mark he can preach later on, do a Bible study. But if you want to meet up another time and do another hour or a couple of hours,
You can carry on if you want, Jay. Doesn't matter, brother. We've got plenty of time.
All right, we'll see how we go anyway. Okay.
All right.
So I don't know where you want to take it, John. I think I'd like to. There's a couple of things that I'd like to say about it. I don't know what you want to say. If you've got anything to say about that first 100 pages.
I mean, I was. Oh, you're only 100 pages in. Yeah, I'm curious. Did you get to the? I believe it's called the division of general logic into analytic and dialectic. It's in the chapter of transcendental logic.
I got to the logic bit. I don't know if I did all of it, but I got to page. I finished exactly 100, and when I finished it, I thought, thank goodness for that.
It is a bit of a slog, that's for sure. It's not an easy read whatsoever.
I don't know if it was all of the logic, but I did some of the logic. So I don't know what you think about that. So
yeah, I mean, there's one part in there where he says, the old question which people sought to push logicians into a corner so that they must either have recourse to pitiful sophisms or confess their ignorance, and consequently the vanity of the whole art, is this: what is truth? The definition of the word truth, to wit, and in accordance to the cognition of its object, is presupposed in the question, but we desire to be told, in the answer to it, what is the universal and secure criterion of the truth in every cognition.
Yeah,
I really like that part.
That struck me. That bit out of all of it was the one bit that struck me.
Definitely. I mean, he goes into very much how the seeking for universal criterion of truth can be it sort of eats its own tail, right? It seems like when we get down to what is truth, we're really saying, what is this object's correspondence with the actual reality of the situation, and we tend to, because we're so limited by our subjective limitations in Kant's philosophy, we're sort of unable to get to the universal criterion of truth besides from the method of pure reason, or pure logic, which he's sort of proposing here. And so he says that, in order for us to get to this pure logic, it has to be removed from all empiricism, removed from all subjective viewpoint. And that way, once we remove the empirical viewpoint, we can access to general logical laws that aren't reliant on senses. Whenever he says that whenever we refer to senses, that's no longer a pure logical term, and only pure logical laws can refer to what is true in the universal criterion sense. And I think it's an interesting solution to the problem of what is truth.
So is he saying that there can be universal laws of logic within the predicate of the individual?
Yes, I mean he's talking about the universality of these laws once we remove any of the empirical data from them. So any sensuous data that we received in those laws has to be removed, or it can be considered completely empirical. So
sorry, John, go on. Sorry.
I think he says, when a mind is thinking of itself, that's empirical data, because there's senses involved in the thinking of yourself. But the knowledge of that mind thinking of itself, that's considered pure data, because it's simply just knowledge, and of the mind is sort of a predicate to the knowledge of itself. But I think he sort of makes it's really hard for anybody to follow, because he makes some really horrible examples. But I think he has a point that once we remove the empirical data, I think we can get to a universal criterion for the concept of truth.
Okay, I think just a couple of things. I think it's like say I'm going out with a lady, and she tells me she's a virgin, and I marry her, and I find out she's not a virgin, and that's kind of what I think with Kant's philosophy. You kind of think you're getting some kind of universal law, but it's still at the end, John, not a universal law. He's talking about universal intuition, but at the end of the day, it's still subjectivism. If you give up objective reality as a construct, if you give that up, okay, you might say we cannot access fully reality, but if you give up objective reality, in the end, you're in subjectivism. And so you might say, I can discover internal subjective laws, of logic, but at the end of the day, it's still subjectivism, because those laws don't necessarily comport to the outward reality. Whereas if you look at the early church fathers, one thing I've enjoyed about this is reading my own tradition and reading other books. I've been reading this book. It's a Catholic book, John. I'm a Protestant evangelical, but it's been going through the early church fathers, and I'd encourage you to read the early church fathers and read a lot of the Catholic theologians, like Augustine and many of the others. And a lot of them believed that reality was objective, and that we could have knowledge of objectivity, and that logic mirrored that reality. But if that objective reality is not there, then we might discover internal laws of logic, but they're not universal laws. They're just subjectivity. It's just subjectivity. And if you look at the history of philosophy, in the end, that's what happens. It just, that's why we've got postmodernism. That's why we've had postmodernism, because it's been an outworking of Kant's thinking that the subjective agent, which I don't deny, the subjective agent colours the way we look at the world, but in a Christian perspective, in the creation perspective, we've got God who creates creation as a reality, and that's the object, and then creates the human being, the subject. So the subject and the object are real, even though the context of the subject might not be able to fully understand the object. They're two real things. But in Kant, the object has gone, and what we're left with is the subject. And the subject might have universal rules, but if the object is not there, then it's still subjectivity, and it works out in modern philosophy.
I don't know. I think Kant is pretty careful to delineate. I think he says, let's see here. in 3 of I don't even know what section this is in, but he says when we say the intuition of the external objects and also the self-intuition of the subject represent both objects and subject in space and time as they affect our senses, this is by no means equivalent to asserting that these objects are mere illusory appearances. For when we speak of things as phenomena, the objects, nay, even the properties which we ascribe to them, are looked upon as really given, only in that so far as in the property depends on the mode of intuition of the subject in relation to the given object of the subject, the object of the phenomena is distinguished from being the object in the thing of itself.
Yeah.
So he's saying that he's not delineating what causes the phenomena. He's saying that we're assuming it's really there. We have to assume it's really there because when it arrives to us, there is no subjective viewpoint by which we're justifying it or judging whether or not it's real.
Yeah, but that's the difference between the Christian perspective and Kant's perspective. We're saying that reality is real and is rational in terms of, God made the world and it's a real world because He made it, and it's really there. What he's saying is, reality is there, but he doesn't know if it's there. You see what I mean? He's saying it's there, but he doesn't know. And he's saying that whatever it is there, I don't know what it is, and I don't know really if it is there, but it's covered by my perspective. So he's trying to have his cake and eat it, as far as I'm concerned, John. That's what I think, bro.
Yeah, I mean, I think you might be right.
And I think, and also, John, I want to say this as well. If you could unpack it as well, what you think, the way it relates to you, because you know my position, you know I'm a Christian, and you know where I'm coming from, and I need to know where you're coming from. What's your position as well? So as we're talking about Kant, it'd be really helpful if I could know a little bit about how it's how your epistemology is, and what is your epistemology, and how it relates to Kant, because it's a bit difficult, because even though we're talking about Kant, it is a dialogue between two other positions as well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I was even like trying to even think as I was reading it, about how it kind of would affect my my epistemology in that way. It's very interesting to think about cognition as sort of this. He goes kind of in further on in the book about cognition as a manifold. Like as in, when we're receiving all this sense and when we have all these intuitions about space and time, that it's coming into us and we're only seeing what is being kind of modeled, what comes together between the what's conceived and what is intuited. He states that it's sort of, we only really are aware of the information once it becomes cognizant of, or once we become cognizant of it. And I think he's right in that. I mean, there's sort of this interesting idea about that when we receive all the information from our sensors, this is sort of in neurobiology, we receive sensuous information into our brain that there's sort of this buffer that goes on in our brain as far as time goes. When we receive information from our finger and from our nose, we can actually we know that that our nose, the nerve from our nose to our brain is shorter than the nerves from our finger to our brain. And yet when we touch our finger to our nose, we experience simultaneous pressure, simultaneous sensation. And it suggests that there's sort of this half second or at least milliseconds of buffering that the brain does before you really understand or before you're really aware of anything that you sense. And I think that's a really interesting idea that that we don't see the world as it is right then. We're seeing pictures of the world and small snippets of the world from the past that we've just observed. And I think that sort of shift in my idea of how I'm receiving information is an interesting idea. I don't know if I necessarily agree with it 100%, but I think there's something to be said about the idea of a space of time between the receiving of the information or the receiving of the the sense data and the time that we actually cognize it I'm just making up words now, cognate.
You sounded good, Bray. I'm very impressed anyway, whatever you say.
Cool. Well, yeah, and I think there's that, and I was thinking also about the idea of space, right? I mean, he does make a lot of good points about how in time and space we're kind of talking about the possibility of stuff being next. Like in space, we're talking about things being, he says, contiguous or being next to each other.
Yeah,
Um, and in time, he's talking about things being consecutive or one after the other, right? And that intuition sort of, it comes along with almost any sensation or experience that we really can think of or possibly experience, right? Even purely mental concepts tend to have those properties kind of built into them, and that assumption built into anything that we think. And I mean, I hadn't really pondered that before, but that's a really interesting idea about what our basis of knowledge really comes from.
mm, mm. Uh, I got out. I enjoyed the little bit about when he broke it up into two different types of language. I enjoyed that bit where he talked about the transcendental language that is, I'll just say so people understand, language that's about metaphysics, i.e. things about that we can't know in our experience, like the soul or God, from his perspective. I enjoyed how he tried to use this as a method, and I was getting into it, and some of it I found a bit difficult to understand. So I enjoyed that. But the thing that I got most out of it is I didn't do a lot on Kant. I only did 100 pages. I did about 20 pages last night, and I did about 100 today. But before that, I did a couple of days reading round before I got to Kant. So I did a lot of reading about the history of philosophy and stuff like that. So I enjoyed the background reading to Kant, and I enjoyed reading the early church fathers and the scholastic, like St. Thomas Aquinas and other Christian writers. And what struck me is that the early church fathers, there were different views about how you relate to philosophy, but they definitely had a view that faith was needed as well as reason, and that reason, without a purpose, without the background of I think my computer's going a bit funny, guys.
Oh, we can still hear you.
We still.
Oh, now you're breaking up. Jay, still there? So, Ray or Mark, did you get any? Yeah, we can still hear you, Jay.
Oh.
Yeah, I was curious. Do you guys have any questions or anything like that? I mean, I might probably not be able to answer them, but a good question sometimes is worth the hearing, no matter what.
Are you talking about his views in just one particular book?
Yeah, this is just the critique of pure reason that we're discussing.
Because I'd be lying if I said I knew anything about him apart from hearing his name from you guys talking, to be honest, and seeing it brought up a lot. I looked into it briefly, and a lot of it's beyond me. There's so much.
Yeah.
It's nuts. Did he talk on? So basically he was. Is it Jason sees it as he's trying to. This is where I'm going to sound like an idiot, but Kant was finding like reasons without God for morality and logic and things like that. Was that one of his?
Not necessarily. I think he kind of delineated morality as a type of pure ethics, where, but I don't think that he necessarily is trying to justify his morality. He's more trying to justify his knowledge, right? He's basically trying to create a system, but which we can actually, I don't know, justify our knowledge, a way that we can be assured about the certainty of our knowledge. I think is how he puts it in his introduction.
And does that go against like Jason's beliefs, or is it Jason's beliefs have a better reason for that, or a more acceptable answer to him for it, or is it just they don't mingle, or it grates against his?
Well, I think I mean Kant he definitely makes this separation between the pure intuition, like what we can know purely from our only through the experience of it and only before experiencing it. So it's sort of they sort of arrive at the same time. So he's talking about a pure reason in that sort of way, but I think that in reality what he's really looking for is a way to analyze these things, right? Like he wants the ability to break it down into its purest form as a way to be able to objectively analyze it. Only in its purest form can the contradiction not occur, right? Once we have a contradiction in its purest form, we know that it's not a true statement, and that's how he kind of goes about it. He looks for the contradiction, and if he finds it, then he attempts to get rid of the presupposition he has and sees if that contradiction remains or if it drops away. It's sort of an interesting way of bringing about the logic, but sometimes it's really hard to follow as far as how he's going about proving each intuition.
Well,
But it's really important for anybody who's getting into it to understand what he's talking about when he's talking about transcendental intuitions and sensuous intuition. There's it's sort of this this idea of metaphysicals. Like he talks about metaphysical expositions and how these are the things that underlie the basic concepts that he's talking about. This is the form of the knowledge he's talking about. And when he gets more into transcendental expeditions, he's talking about this is how we create the form. This is the object through which the form is talking about. I don't know. I'm not even really 100% clear on how he would be able to really create a basis for that, right? Like, it seems like. Yeah, no, go ahead, Jay.
No, I just missed what question was asked and what it was about.
Well, he's trying to ask about what is Kant trying to do in this book, right? And I think it's very much about basing reason, not morality or not ethics or anything like that. He really wants to create a system of epistemology that can always be justified or always be I don't know, checked in on would be a good word.
I think
he wants.
Sorry, go on.
Yeah, no, go. I mean, I think he wants a method by which he can have certainty, and I think that's a really great goal to have. I think. But.
I don't know. I think he's trying to give an epistemology. Well, you've got to see it in the context of the other works as well. So it's a whole. If you read his language and listen to his language, if you look at his categories for how he sees reason and how he separates the transcendental, i.e. the metaphysical ideas and the rational empirical ideas. Is someone whistling there? Someone keep...
Oh, my nose is one of my nostrils is permanently blocked, and when I breathe, it.
I thought it was a budgie or something.
Could be. Can you hear it? I said it's permanently blocked. I don't know what it is.
If Kant was here, that would be on the transcendental side. I think.
That's one of the things.
Jay.
Yeah.
Jay.
Yeah.
Can I just add something here? But just listening and that, if I've got it right. Can you read me all right?
Yeah.
What's strange today is when you read Richard Dawkins and the late Christopher Hitchens and the New Atheism, the strong objections to any belief in God, a theistic God, is that it's irrational. So they see the New Atheism as rational, and they reject any belief in a theistic God as being irrational. Whereas Kant done the opposite, which was the other way around. He rejected theistic belief in God because of the rational element. Does that make sense? So you've got like I mean, even the title, A Critique of Pure Reason.
Yeah.
I want to know. I mean, what do atheists think of Kant? Do they esteem Kant? Because why would they esteem anybody? Because the old objection from the New Atheism is believing in God is irrational, and people with reason wouldn't believe in God. So I can't understand atheists that would support Kant.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't have a big thing about reason, doesn't he? Obviously, his argument is it's not the be all and end all. Is that right?
Yeah,
Have I got
because,
mixed up?
yeah. No, I think in a sense you're right, because he doesn't reject the existence of God, but what he does is he compartmentalizes the arguments for the soul, arguments for God. These are things that you can't prove rationally. Freedom of the will you can't prove rationally. They're not on the empirical side. So proving God rationally from a scientific point of view cannot be done as far as Kant's concerned. These other ideas are on his transcendental side, that are ideas that could be possibly God, but you can't prove it rationally in terms of the empirical. I don't know what you think, John.
Yeah, I think there's an element to that. I think the reason people love Kant, or Kant, would be that, I mean, he's very honest in his assessment of himself. He's almost brutally honest with the level of detail that he goes into in supporting each premise that he brings up. And I think that's why he would be admired in a way, by atheists. Is there's this brutal honesty about the limitations of his knowledge, and where he can speak and where he can't speak. And I don't think that Kant is necessarily against God. I mean, he mentions him quite a bit. But he mentions him as a synthetic transcendental truth, right? That the truth of him may not be able to be doubted, but that's because it's formed out of an intuition that can't be doubted, and an intuition that doesn't experience doubt, and that the only real thing that he's changing is the conception of that God, right? And that's what we're really talking about.
So,
Yeah, I mean, I would say that, I mean, he's not necessarily ruling out God as a concept, or for being rational. You know, he's saying that the concept of God may not be rationally justified.
empirically,
But right, empirically justified. I mean, the experience of God may not be available to us in that sort of sense, but that he intuits it the same way that he intuits his own. Like he mentions his own soul, but I think what he means by that is his own. He realizes he is a mind, right? His own understanding of his own mind. So he intuits it in the same way, that he can't rationally justify it empirically, but that he intuits it just through the use of his mind.
I think, John. I think on 2 points, or 3 points. One is the Christianity I come from, like evangelicalism. Kant had a devastating impact on historical Jesus studies, because you had Strauss and people like that taking this idea that you've got two types of knowledge. You have the empirical knowledge, and you have this metaphysical stuff that you can't prove. So you just put that aside. So when you're looking at the Gospels, when you're looking at Jesus, it can't be empirically verified, so therefore we strip it of all its supernatural element. So you had Strauss and others writing the life of Jesus. So Kant was quite devastating in terms of historical Jesus studies and things like that. In the 18th and 19th century. So that's one point. There was another point I wanted to make.
Was he rejecting all gods, or was it just the Christian God, or was that because that was so prevalent at the time, or was it just when we're talking about, when he's saying like the notion of God, are we talking about a particular religion, or is it he means as like a base concept?
It'd been the Christian God around that time.
Yeah, it'd be the Christian. Well, he's from a pietist background, and he respected his mum and dad. They were highly religious pietists, and I think what he's trying to do, because he's come from that pietist background, the pietists of that time were, well, the academic world today would say that they were anti-intellectual. If you actually go and look at it, they weren't. If you actually go and study the...
What does pietist mean?
The pietist is that they believe they came from the Lutheran system of theology mainly, and basically it's just a belief in an experience of God and getting on practically doing good deeds and stuff like that. Not concentrating too much on the intellect, concentrating about how you live your life. But if you actually looked at pietism, it's more complex than that. The point is that Kant came from that background and it influenced him, and so in a way he's trying to save a little bit for Christianity and put it on one side and just give it a little bit of kudos, but he stripped it of any evidential rational basis from in experience, which,
You know,
which ironically, sorry,
no, please go ahead, Jay. Please finish.
which ironically, at the same time Kant was doing that, you had John Wesley and the Whitfield Revival, the Great Awakening, and things like that, where experience. So Kant's saying we can't know God in experience. Yet you had John Wesley and Whitfield and Jonathan Edwards, the philosopher in America, who were having major experiences of God. But Kant is trying to bracket, he's trying to save a little bit of room for religion, but he's not giving it too much kudos. There's a story that I read today where he was chancellor, or he was the head of the religious department, whatever that was, at his university, and when it came to ceremonies, he never turned up. He'd always give excuses to stay away. So he kind of had some respect, but from his parents and that background, but not too much respect.
Yeah,
But,
I mean, I think it's.
Sorry,
I
John.
was just going to say, I mean, I have been reading a lot of these early philosophical texts lately, a little bit of Leibniz and things like that, and Hume. And I think I find that one sort of, Leibniz not so much, but especially with Hume and some of the other early thinkers, I find that when they're dealing with the topic of God or religion, they tread it very lightly, right? And I think it's almost difficult to place, how they are siding just by reading their works. I think that they were very careful that the true meaning of their doubt in God would be hidden from people who weren't going to look into it too carefully. I think they were. I felt like they were kind of covering their tracks a little bit. Worried about getting in trouble from the church, and I think that would be a very understandable fear if you're a big name thinker publishing a book.
Yeah, I think
So-
that's definitely with Hume. I mean, he got quite a lot of stick, didn't he, as a university professor in Edinburgh? But
Yes, definitely.
but Hume was Hume, and he didn't pack no punches. He really gave it some on religion and stuff like that and what he thought. But there was these issues of authority with the state, like with Kant, with Prussia, there was a big debate about pantheism and stuff like that, and the state got on quite a few academics back in the time of Kant, and Kant jumped in and said things, and so like religion was with the state a lot, and there was a lot of issues there, and philosophers had to be careful. But they did make sure that they got their word out, and I think also you have to be careful with the Enlightenment. If you look at the academic world today, the scholarship, in the 60s, there was a general view of the Enlightenment as a uniform idea, and that it was all about reason. It fits in a little bit with what you're saying, actually, John. But academics now, there's more to say that you should look at the Enlightenment in each historical context. So the British Enlightenment with David Hume had a bit more religious content within it and reflection. The French Enlightenment was more atheistic with the French Revolution, and the German Enlightenment was a little bit different. So when we talk about Enlightenment and what was going on in relation to religion, it was different in France, it was different in Germany, it was different in the UK, in Britain.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I mean, there's a lot in there that might be you could construe it to go either way. I think, and I think that's how they really wrote. They wanted people to draw their own conclusions and to make they wanted to make their point, but I think that they didn't want to come out down on either side in that argument. So thank you. Thank you,
So
Red.
here's John. John, I know this is an important question. So here's a
Mhm.
question. In your studying of Kant and in your atheism, why is it you've never come to faith in Christ? What has stopped you from believing in Christ, and how does Kant reinforce you not believing in Christ?
Hmm. Well, that's a good question. I don't know. I never really considered it as connecting the two. In a way, I can read these thinkers without having to believe them, right, or believe everything they say, right. So I wouldn't necessarily take on board any beliefs that he might have. But I think as far as what might be considered how it would affect my not coming to Christ, I think there's sort of this idea of maybe my knowledge isn't as certain, right? And so how would I delineate an experience of something that's external to myself, like being such as Christ coming into my life, right? I mean, my sensuous experience would only tell me what is coming into my senses, and so I think it's weird to think about something coming from the exterior that would affect my internal state. I think that's an odd sensation or a weird sort of. Do you see how the metaphysics of that would sort of throw me a little bit?
Go on, just unpack it a bit. I'm just intrigued.
Yeah, yeah, totally. So with Hume, the senses are subjective limitations, right? The senses are coming in as an intuition, and then we are making the judgment as to their validity. And
Yeah.
so I feel like with the concept of Jesus coming into my life, right? I feel like it's an odd way of putting something external and then it being able to come into my cognition before my sensation, right? I mean, isn't that what we're saying? Is that it's going to change my cognition of the sensuous reality?
Mm.
I think that's where I find that weird, right? Because once you get past that, I mean, am I simply sensing Jesus's personage in my cognition, and in that case, then I can't be sure of his existence, right? And
Yeah.
if he's internal, well, then I can be transcendently sure of his existence, like I can be sure of my own existence. But I can't necessarily know if that is what's going on, right? It sort of takes place before I can judge it, is what I'm saying.
Okay. Can I just read this? It's Pascal,
Yeah, sure.
and he says, could you reflect on this and Kant and what you're saying? He says, the God of Christians is not the God who is simply the author of mathematical truths or of the order of the elements. That is the view of heathens and Epicureans. He is not merely a God who exercises his providence over the life and fortunes of men to bestow on those who worship him a long and happy life. That was the portion of the Jews. But the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob, the God of the Christians is a God of love and of comfort, a God who fills the soul and heart of those whom he possesses, a God who makes them conscious of their inward wretchedness and his infinite mercy, who unites himself to their innermost soul, who fills it with humility and joy and with confidence and love, who renders them incapable of any other end than himself. All who seek God without Jesus Christ and who rest in nature either find no light to satisfy them or come to form for themselves a means of knowing God and serving him without a mediator. Without Jesus the Christ without Jesus Christ the world would not exist. So when I had that debate with atheist global atheist, basically, this is what I was basically saying. Without Jesus Christ, the world would not exist. Basically, for me, the understanding of knowledge has to go and reason has to go with faith. Because without faith, reason doesn't have a purpose, ultimately. This is how I see it. And it's faith not just in facts, but it's faith in a person who is the ground of objective reality and who is the ground of my experience, how experience is mediated, and it's about entering into a relationship with your creator, and so that's how I see it. That's why when I'd just like to say this because it's really important. I've read Kant today, and I've done 100 pages, and even though I enjoyed a little bit, it left my soul dry. But when I was reading the early church fathers, and when I was reading the scholastics and things like that, my soul was on fire, and I felt such joy and peace. And for me, it's a real experience of knowing God through Christ. That's the main thing. Paul said, "For me to live is Christ." But what is the point? John, I'm really impressed with what you've been saying. I tell you're really on the ball today. But what is the point, John, if we analyze language like I mean, we've had Kant, but then we've got to go, when we've done Kant, we'll have to do Wittgenstein or something, and it's an onward process. But in Christ, it is a growing process. But you have this relationship with your Maker, John, and it is an amazing relationship. I mean, you've seen me, how I've gone through difficulty and been depressed, but I can say, John, that there is this joy and peace that you can have, and He is a real Savior. And
What if some people it just doesn't? It's hard for people to pick up. Like there's a part of each person where even if, say, you could say they're seeking something and they try as hard as they can and they read everything you've read, and they're maybe in a bad place in their life and something just isn't clicking. How would someone get around that? Or is it you can't be willful about it? Is it sort of like, so say something resonates more with John than it does with you? Like you said, you read that today and you said it felt you left feeling dry, right? But what if for John it makes a lot more sense, or that's more of on a base level, it gives them more?
Because I would say it's not rational. If you look at the early church fathers, reason cannot have, if you have not got faith. And by the way, I do think that everyone has faith as well as reason. Even skeptics have faith in things that they can't prove. So we all have faith, but Christians have faith in Jesus, in God. And without faith, reason doesn't have a purpose. Because if all it is, if we came here by chance, if there is no purpose in history, then our little analysis of philosophy in the end doesn't mean anything, and reason doesn't mean anything. For the fathers, faith gives reason its purpose. It gives its grounding, and it was never ever for the fathers or for the if you read the whole history of the early church fathers and how science developed, it was never seen. Faith was never seen, apart from one or two mystics. It was never seen as anti-intellectual. It was seen as the ground for reason. So I would reply and say, it's not just about feeling. It's also about that it gives it's rational. It gives a rational basis for reason. In the end, I would say that you're not being rational enough because you're not taking your skepticism to its logical conclusion. I would say that Kant knows where skepticism is going because he's seen it worked out with Hume, because Hume worked it out, and he's trying to hold back the floodgates of that skepticism. But I would say if you sat down as a skeptic and you followed what Hume was saying and you took it to its logical conclusion, if John, you did, and you my friend, if you took it to the logical conclusion, then in the end, skepticism is self-defeating. But you're not going full skeptic. What you're doing is you're not taking it to its logical conclusion. You're holding back and saying, no, I can have some rationality and I can have reason, but there's no rational basis for that. Whereas you need faith to give reason a rational basis.
Well, I think there's a few points I'd like to hit there. When I read these first couple chapters here, I've actually just today I figured we wouldn't get too far into it, so I had just the first couple chapters, and I put them on repeat in my headphones, and I was amazed at some of the lines that he comes up with, and I mean, I think I think there's, as far as leaving me dry, I don't feel like it was like that. I felt like every time I actually put it on repeat, and every time I listened to it, I picked up something else. There was another point that I had missed, or another thing that I hadn't thought about. And I think that I think that it might be tough to get into, but I think that there's a greater satisfaction with accomplishing something with it, with finally understanding a concept that seems like gibberish when you first hear it. I think there's a goal that, there's something great about that, and I think we all kind of experience that as far as, accomplishing a goal, reading a book or finishing a great thought, or coming to a conclusion about something.
I dig that, John, but all the
Yeah.
language that you're using there is language of purpose, yeah?
Nah, not necessarily, right? The other thing I was going to mention was, that reason doesn't necessarily have to have a purpose. The meaning behind something only has to go as far as the person cognizing it, right? I mean, without the intuition and the conception coming together, there is no knowledge. And so Kant would say that
Yep.
without our subjective point of view, the question of meaning would be meaningless. Sorry for the pun.
No, I think that's self-defeating. You have no rational basis on the grand scale of history. You have no rational basis to say that there is a purpose. Would you agree?
Right, but as a subjective being, I don't exist on a grand scale. That's all I'd be saying.
Sorry, say that again, John.
Well, as an individual, I don't exist on the grand scale itself. I mean, I don't cognize nor view the entirety of time nor space. And so in that way, I can't make a suggestion about that.
You don't have to know the grand scale, but on the historical flow, there is a time when nature began, yeah, and there is
Right.
there's a time when it's going to end, yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah, and in that objective time frame, there is no objective meaning, yeah.
I think the term objective sort of loses its meaning at that point, right? I mean, we're talking about from a point of view, and so in order for you to say beginning and end, we have to take history as a part, and I think that's what Kant would say, is that we're viewing it as a part, not as the whole. And we tend to think of things as grand purpose or grand design, but we don't necessarily see even the full design. Even when we are, the very concept of us trying to analyze it makes us subject to the part that instead of the whole.
Say that again. Say that again, John.
Well, I think he would state that, when the second that we analyze it, we're actually implying that we're viewing the part and not the whole. We're implying that it must be subjective to us, right? I mean, once we analyze history, we have to say that we're analyzing it from a point of view. We can't say we're analyzing it from an objective point of view.
Yeah, but on two levels, there's a hypocrisy there. There's a big hypocrisy, because on the practical level, you're happy to say that on the cosmic level, but on the practical level, Kant and you would be happy to do scientific research, gain knowledge, and make a car, make a house, do hospital stuff, heal people. Yeah. So you're on a practical level. You are using knowledge to try and do things in an objective way, even though you're saying there's no objectivity, right? So
Yes.
so you're doing that on a sort of small scale. But when it comes to considering the bigger scale, you're just ignoring that. And in the end, reality bites. At the end of the day, one day you're going to die, John. And that is a cosmic thing. That is a big cosmic thing. Everybody's dying. They died thousands of years ago, and they're going to die in thousand years time. And you've got to deal with that. You've got to deal with that. That's reality. That's hitting you hard. And you can't just push it aside and say, on the grand scale, everybody's dying before us and after us, and I don't have to deal with it. You have to deal with it. And you have to answer the big philosophical questions. And it's no good saying, oh, that presumes that there's an objective reality there, but you're contradicting yourself, because you're doing pragmatism where you're doing basic practical knowledge in everyday life. You're saying that there's no objective reality, but in a way you're acting as if there's objective reality, because you're making planes and planes fly, and you don't think they're going to crash. You think that they're going to obey certain laws, etc. So I would say, John, and I say this with great respect, because you seem you're a superb guy and really intelligent, and what you're saying is brilliant, but I would press you, John. You're very good at pressing Christians and theists, but I press you, bro, to face that reality, and your reason on the small scale does not have a purpose. And so when you're reasoning with me, that's purposeful. But yet it doesn't have a purpose without faith. And that is why, for me, that's why I enjoyed reading a bit of this, but it's why I enjoyed reading more of the early church fathers, and because there's hope. But when you put Kant into practice, where does it lead? When you look at the intellectuals who followed Kant and you look at their lives, when you look at Nietzsche and people like that, logically it began to lead to despair, because it went subjectively inside. And postmodernism is really the ultimate outcome of all this.
So what you're saying, Jason, is that say someone like me who hasn't got a belief, we almost live within like a bubble, that we get to a certain level and we're happy with that, but we don't see that the purpose is in that smaller state, and then there's an area that we just don't get to, like we just don't get to the next level of not understanding, but like the purpose is very I don't know.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm not wording it right, but you're saying we just don't have that next step. But what if I say for a lot of people that it doesn't matter? Like if we're happy and it isn't a worry, although those questions may come later in life.
Okay.
Is it wrong to live a life where we don't necessarily have to take that next, we don't have to go that stage deeper where we have to have like a full stop underneath the purpose? Because I don't necessarily see there as being a benefit for me that I don't have this infinite purpose that I can go, although it's a hard, look, it's dying shit, right? And you take it back to that and you go, but then after that, I don't know.
But it's being logically consistent in your own position. If you as atheists, and I'm saying this with great respect, right? The old Jay bashing the militant atheists. This is the Jay talking to ordinary atheists with respect. So I'm saying this with the greatest respect.
I'm not saying I'm ordinary.
I'm saying it with the greatest respect. That my head's tired now.
It's late. You should.
What I'm trying to say is, two things really. First of all, imagine you've got an articulate lorry, yeah, and it's a massive lorry. It's got tons of stuff on it, and it stops right in front of you, and you're in the middle of the road, but you're playing with a little toy lorry, yeah. And I come to you and I say, look, you want purpose and meaning in this little lorry, yeah, but you've got to look at the grand issue. There's a big lorry in front of you, and it's going to kick off in a minute. And if you don't move out of the way, it's going to roll over you. And you say, I don't want to deal with that. I can't access the reality of that. My senses can't get to the bottom of it. It's a big issue. I'm enjoying my little playing of the little lorry. In the end, you've got to deal with that massive reality, and that's all I'm trying to say is you've got to deal with that massive reality. It's no good saying I can't access the reality. The reality is that you will die at some stage. The reality is people die all the time. That's one massive cosmic reality out there. That if you say you can't access it, well, you will access it because you're going to join everybody else who's gone in the ground. And so all I'm saying is that for me, reading the early church fathers, guys, it really encouraged me to believe that faith and reason have to go together. That if there is no faith, i.e., if there's no belief in something that gives meaning to everything, then reason is just a tool that we're using purposely, but we don't really have a purpose for it, and that's important. And when you look at philosophy in the existentialism, you look at nihilism, you look at how philosophy played out in the 20th century, you can see the effects of reason being cut off from faith in this despair. There were a lot of philosophers who went into a lot of despair because they thought it through and they took it to its logical conclusion.
Well, in a lot of ways, though, I mean, I think that's sort of maybe what Kant is getting at in a sort of an analogous way, where he's saying that we don't necessarily have faith, but we have these assumptions that we're making before we even get to knowledge. And I don't know if he's pointing necessarily to I don't know if he's pointing necessarily to uh, you know, the faith in that sense. I mean, he's pointing to something that is he considers like indubitable is how he puts, undoubtworthy. But like it's I was kind of getting I was kind of when you said that if this world is subjective, then we don't have access to the objective. And I think that's maybe true from Kant's point of view, but he's very careful about pointing out that when we're talking about sciences and we're talking about math, we're talking about empirical data, and he's very careful in saying that when we're dealing with that, what we're dealing with is an experience, and that geometry and math and things like that are sure they're entirely conceptual, but they are proved by demonstration, as he puts it. Geometry is not proved by the form; it's proved by the demonstration of the form. And I think that's
Well,
where
well,
I think that's where we can say that, like, we're not being inconsistent in acknowledging that we have some things that are purely intuition and some things that we need to intuit and then add a conception to, or add come to some sort of synthetic analysis on as to the truth of the
in,
representation.
if you take a goldfish ball and you just imagine you've got in the goldfish ball you've got empiricism and intuitism, yeah,
Yeah.
in the goldfish ball, two little goldfish, one's called empiricism, one's called intuitism. The Christian perspective is you've got the goldfish ball and you've got empiricism inside the goldfish ball, yeah?
Yep.
But outside, you've got a human being who feeds the goldfish ball and who maintains the goldfish ball, and that's faith. And that's the difference. For Kant, it's still in the goldfish ball. He's still in the goldfish ball. With faith, you're drawn out. Reason is given that position of outside that goldfish ball where it gives reason a purpose within the grand scale of things, specifically in the Christian God, because like if you look at science and the history of science and how science developed, a lot of people say with Copernicus, and some people say it was with Islam and stuff like that. But if you look at the scholastics, there's quite a few scholastic scholars, monks and stuff like that, who were physicists, and they're the ones that took science, and they took science forward because they believed there was no disparity between faith and reason, because faith meant belief in God, who was objective, who gave an objective world, and we're objective, so there's subjective and objective, and we can interact with reality, and so therefore we can go and investigate reality and find out knowledge about it. So it gave them a basis to do science, and so we can't. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I heard a term, I don't know if it's true, and I put it in a quote. But with Kant, and I might be wrong, ontology collapses. Now I don't know if that's true or not. Meaning, being, the idea of being behind things, that there is a real being in terms of us as human beings. There's a real ontological status to reality. I'm not sure that Kant actually did believe that. I think that being collapsed with him, and it was about experience and the subjective, whereas the Christian position is there is an ontological status as there is real reality. We are real human beings, and there is a real God, and they all connect. And so there's a difference. I think there's a difference.
I mean, I think I would disagree with you that faith is somehow objective when empiricism remains subjective, right? I mean, I think that faith would be stuck in the same bowl according to Kant, right? I mean, you're basically, I mean, your faith only can be made on analysis of the situation you're in, and in that way, I don't think that you could get away from the fishbowl, right? Despite the fact that you're asserting the faith of, just as in intuitism, let's say, creates like these sensuous intuitions that that come into our cognition and we analyze them. I think that faith would be kind of a similar thing where the analysis it's almost like it takes that analysis first in order for you to make a statement of faith. I think that you're still kind of stuck in the subjectivity that Hume is talking about, or that Kant is talking about here.
Mm.
But it's but I think that's an interesting idea about faith not being it's not a block to science, I don't think. And I don't think that, I think that Kant is actually arguing almost the opposite of that. That some parts of reason, as long as we're very honest about how we're reasoning and the methodology by which we're coming to that reasoning, that no matter what transcendent intuition that we tend to take in, we'll still be able to move forward towards something we'll call the truth. Just because what we see is going to be kind of integrated with that conception, right, of the truth.
Yeah.
So I think there is a way that faith is not necessarily a hindrance, and I don't think that Kant is actually arguing that. I think he's arguing that perhaps faith might be taking it too far, or perhaps we're relying too much on something that's not empirical in a discussion about an empirical fact. But I think that I don't think he's discouraging faith, especially in some of his comments about God and the soul.
But I think that, coming back to you, like you said, I'm in the same fishbowl. It is true, I'm in the same fishbowl, but it's whether your construction of what you see around you is making sense of the totality of the experience.
Definitely, I think.
And so for the Christian position, for the early church fathers, I stress the early church fathers and as a conglomerate, but they were different. Tertullian believed in a different way of understanding philosophy than Justin Martyr. So don't get me wrong, I'm not saying they're all the same, but for the early church fathers, generally speaking, God created creation, and it was for them, and that reality is real, and reality, the creation is good, and it's been marred. We're human beings, and we've been made by God. It's been marred, and there is reason, and there is feeling, and there is all sorts of things about what it is to be human. And so, for my understanding, is when the early church fathers are talking about faith and reason, it makes sense to them because it's taking into consideration the totality of human experience. Whereas Kant is talking about critique of pure reason, and the whole point of it is to decompartmentalize, to say that one is here and one is there, metaphysics here and empiricism there, but he's not talking about faith. He's talking about intuition. He's not really taking seriously. I know the other books that he's read, I'm aware of them, but he's not taking seriously the totality of human experience in religious experience or the Christian faith or any other faith. He's not really doing any analysis of that. He's taking the arguments for the existence of God from Sir Thomas Aquinas. The reason why those 5 arguments were used in the 17th century is because they were talking about rationalism and that faith has to be rational. So they used these 5 arguments, but it's interesting to note that if you look at Sir Thomas Aquinas' Summa Theologica, those 5 arguments only take up, out of 3,000 pages, only take up 2 pages, 2 or 3 pages. The reason is, the Christian faith from Sir Thomas Aquinas was seen as a totality of other things, not just about 5 arguments, but about the whole totality of the experience of life. So, putting it simply, I would say that Kant is taking one particular aspect of reality, and he's talking about that. And I would say the early church fathers are taking a wider reference of reality, and they're talking about that. And that's what I buy into. I buy into that it's important to have rationality and reason. This is absolutely important. I buy into about science, but I also buy into that human nature is more than just those things. It's more, and they are not compartmentalized. That human nature is a whole, is a whole, and you can't just compartmentalize them. And faith is part of that whole of being human.
Well, I think I don't think I disagree with you about the church fathers taking a wider view of it. Kant is definitely, he's focusing in on a very specific point, especially in the first part of his book here, where he's
Yeah.
getting into the intuitions, and I think maybe I do agree with you, that he might be arguing a little bit against faith in that case, just by delineating so strongly between the pure and the empirical,
Well, that's what I'm getting at, John. If you go on Saint John, if you type in on YouTube if you type in Karl Barth, you'll find the channel Karl Barth, and you'll find a lecture on um, where's my notes? You just type in Karl Barth. I think it's Saint John Nottingham University, and there's about 50 or 80 little 20-minute lectures and stuff like that, and there's loads of stuff on the Enlightenment. It's like different academics. So so listening to a couple of them and reading a few articles, and reading Kant, my impression, and because I've read the history of the early church fathers and the the scholastics and stuff like that, I feel this impact of what he's saying, that this pure reason is dealing with Hume, is dealing with Lips. You could have pronounced it
Oh,
Lipsit.
Leibniz, I believe, is his. Yeah, he's dealing with Leibniz and
Yeah,
Wolfgang.
Leibniz and Wolf, but he's dealing with these scholastics as well, and so I've said that about 3 times. I'm sorry to bore you, mate.
Yeah, definitely. No, exactly. I mean, I think you're right. And, I'd be interested to continue this conversation with you. Once you've if you wanted to keep reading or anything like
Yeah,
that.
thanks, John. Yeah,
Definitely. I mean,
can we go? I'm getting a bit tired now, so if
yeah, absolutely, man. It's almost been 2 hours, so I'm not opposed to it.
so,
Yeah, it's about 12 o'clock now, isn't it? Yeah.
John, I'll let you wrap up. Do you want to say whatever for 5 minutes, like conclude or whatever, and we can pick up? Maybe we could do the next 100 pages in a couple of days' time, or something. 200
Yeah,
pages.
sounds good, man. I'm moving along in it, so I wouldn't mind that at all.
You
So,
said you were listening to it. Have you got it on an audiobook or is it online somewhere?
Yeah, it's online actually. You can get most of these old books through something called LibriVox.org. They do volunteer audiobooks, all the public access stuff. So all the stuff that's available for free online, they'll generally have read it out.
That's good.
Yeah, it's
And
one of
you can
the
just
greatest
download
things ever. What's that?
Can you drop that in the sidebar or
Yeah,
post it on the
absolutely.
thing so I can...
I'll do
LibriVox?
that. LibriVox.
Oh, okay. Because I was going to say I take it in a lot better if I can listen to it. Because Jason, you mentioned a long time ago. You said you asked me if I'd ever read it was it the Gospel of John,
yeah.
and I pulled it up online and I couldn't read through it. My attention span with reading is I've never been the best. So I looked for like an audio version on YouTube and stuff like that. But a lot of people had added in sound effects and stuff, and it was I don't know if I'm getting like I don't know if I'm getting like an edited version or anything like that, but I'll look for another one.
Okay.
That doesn't look like the right one. I'm gonna check that out. But yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I love the audiobooks also. They're amazing. Sometimes you get a weird reader, but
Yeah, I was going to say if someone's voice is off, it puts me right off. It can ruin it. I mean, even on audiobooks, I was listening to one in the series of a few, and they changed the person halfway through, like in the books, and I was like, oh, I can't carry on because it completely changed it for me. But I take it in so much better. And then, as you say, you can just listen to it once, you can listen to it again, and you'll pick up parts. Because when I'm reading, I just wander. I can't. I get halfway through a paragraph, or I'm down a page, and I'm thinking about like I don't know broccoli or what I'm gonna eat. It's so tough. It's like I can't. It's probably severe ADHD.
yeah, no. Some people have that problem, and especially with heavier stuff like this, you could read a sentence 3 or 4 times, and you just get no conception of what he's trying to say out of it, and that can be a problem with people, especially with reading comprehension, where you'll read a line, but you won't really be getting the concept that's behind it.
I think with even what I was looking up during this about him, some of the language as well, for me it's difficult because there's so many words where I have to go back and reference it and see what it actually means, and then you look, and then the explanation is, oh, there's 2 more words I need to pick out.
One thing that's frustrating about Kant is that he kind of comes up with his own terminology throughout the entire book. Like he basically just starts. He's like, this is what I mean by this. This is what I mean by transcendental. This is what I mean by pure, and he just peppers the whole thing. Like the first 100 pages are just peppered with new definitions for words that sort of have definitions, and he's kind of taking them and changing them to his own purpose. So it takes a while to get into his vernacular, as they say.
Yeah, I think if you read Stanford University on his articles there's a couple of articles on Kant. They're helpful. I read essays and articles before I read Kant, so as soon as I started reading Kant, some of the ideas I could get straight away. But there's one or two bits on things I thought, I'm going to have to go back and read that again. But reading a few articles about Kant before can help you to get into it a bit, I think. I put you a source here that's really helpful.
It's amazing, yeah. If anybody who wants an audiobook, please go to LibriVox.org, LibriVox.org. They have a great resource and for all old audiobooks, some really great stuff in there.
And is it just about academic stuff, or is it on particular topics, or is it just a whole host of stuff?
They do everything. It's a whole host of really old stuff there. So. And
it's volunteers that read it out. That's a brilliant idea.
It's awesome. I think they should do more of it. But Jay, I'm happy to leave it there. I probably have a few notes here from Kant, but I'm happy to let it move on. I know it's been pretty late for you, and I'd really like to thank you first of all just for that was an amazing discussion. I had a great time, and I haven't had a great time researching it. The book is it's way more interesting than probably a lot of people realize because it is so imposing, and it gets a bad reputation, I think. So.
Yeah, I even though I said it was dry, I did thoroughly enjoy it. Actually, really, I really did. I've enjoyed doing the research and stuff, and so I really appreciate it, guys. I don't know what to say. I've just absolutely loved every minute of it talking to you.
Yeah, as always, Jay, I had a real pleasure. So thank you so much, man.
The reference, if you go onto the YouTube channel, St. John's Nottingham, Immanuel Kant, there's a little biography of 24 minutes which is really helpful. St. John's Nottingham, Immanuel Kant, and there's loads of little lectures on theology and philosophy there as well. Okay.
Definitely.
So I'll leave it. Do you want to say one last word, John?
Nothing other than I would encourage anybody who's interested in epistemology to take a look at this book. I don't know about reading the whole thing, but there are some great summaries and lectures out there that would really catch you up on some of the major concepts.
Yeah, Kant did after the second edition or third edition, he did a little 200-page summary because people were complaining they didn't fully understand what he was saying.
Yeah.
He wrote a little book that simplifies it. So I forgot what it's called, but
Kant for Dummies.
If you get hold of that, I've got a copy. I could give a copy, but that's a summary. So I was going to read it, but I didn't get a chance to. But that might help. So, and also there's a lecture by R.C. Sproul on Kant. That's helpful. And also, if you go to Oxford University, there's some good lectures on Kant there. I'll listen to one for about half an hour, but there's some Kantian scholars there that you can listen to, and they'll. And also Dr. Sadler, I've not listened to any of his, but he's very good giving lectures and talks on philosophers and Kant and stuff like that. So that's it. So John and Ray, thank you very much for coming. I wish we'd have done this over the last 5 years, me being on YouTube. I wish I could have done this the 5 years.
Maybe it's just the start of it happening now, AJ. I mean, it's I got a lot of time on my hands. Maybe sometimes it just takes a while for things to happen, right? Yeah. And it doesn't really matter, what's gone before. If you
the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step, doesn't it?
The other thing I'm worried about is, Jay, there's books above your head. It's getting a bit precarious where they look like they're going to cascade over the top. Or is it just that camera angle, or is it...
My auntie's telling me I've got to get rid of them. There's too many. It's just getting ridiculous. The thing is, every time I go to church, they have free books. They put loads of books that are free. So every time I go, I bring a book back. Every time I have a day off, I bring about 4 books home. And it's just getting ridiculous.
I'm moving, and I'll still look around charity shops and stuff, and I'm taking stuff to charity stores. I'm seeing my own like stuff on the rails in the books, and then I'm looking at other books, and I'm like, I can't. I've got to move. I can't buy something else, and then it'll sit in a dusty cupboard for another 3 years, and then it goes back the never-ending cycle of charity shopping.
So just let us know when you want to meet up again then, guys, and we can meet up again. I don't know, maybe next week or something we could do another 100 pages or something.
Well, what
Sure.
I'll do is if you guys post whatever the book is, and or whenever the new one is, because I'm probably a bit behind in this, I'll go on that. If you choose something from that LibriVox, I might be offline for no, maybe in a month I'll be offline for maybe a couple of months. I'll be dark, so
Okay.
yeah, that would be good.
John, could you do that, mate?
Yeah, sure, no problem.
Thanks, mate.
Send that along.
I'm not very good at administration and all that stuff. All right. Is it okay if I just say a little prayer before we go, and then we'll...
By all means, Jay, go right ahead.
Lord, I just thank you for this day. I thank you for Ray and John, Lord. I just pray you bless them and all that they do. Thank you for all of that's been today. And Lord, I just pray whatever we've read that we might learn and grow. And I pray, Lord, that we might come to know you, Lord. Thank you for this day. And thank you for these guys, Lord, in your name. Amen. All right, guys. Thanks a lot. John, I much appreciated, mate. I've got
Not a problem, Jay. It's my pleasure.
You've raised my game. I've got to do a lot more hard work. I've done loads of work, you know. I spent a full day reading today.
I believe you. This isn't easy topics at all. So I absolutely believe you. It's taken me quite a while to get my head around it.
Yeah, I think you're doing a bit better than me, mate. So I'm gonna have to do some more thinking, mate. All right. If you get a chance, read the early church fathers. The good stuff. All right.
Tertullian, you were saying, yeah, absolutely.
All right. Take care. See you, John, and see you, Ray. And God bless you, guys. All right. Okay, I'm going to close the hangout now. I think Mark might be doing a Bible study later on, or he might have gone to bed. I don't know. But anyhow, love to you all anyway, and take care, John. Take care, Ray.
Peace and love, Jay.
And everybody else. Thanks for coming, everybody. Take care.